Christian Parenting.
Aloha, friends! Welcome to the Boy Mom Podcast, powered by Christian Parenting and hosted by my mom, Monica Swanson. On the Boy Mom Podcast, it is our goal to provide you with practical advice and biblical wisdom for raising boys in this sometimes crazy world. You can find show notes for the podcast over at monicaswanson.com/podcast. We're so glad you're here.
When we talk about preserving your reputation, it's guarding that personal brand. And one of the sayings that I just love that really captures it is that you may not always be loved or liked, but you must always be trusted. And when I worked for Russell Investments, we had a corporate culture that was just second to none. And our chairman and chief executive officer, George Russell, used to say that if you're not sure whether or not to do something, imagine it that it's in the headline of tomorrow morning's newspaper.
Well, aloha and welcome back to the Boy Mom Podcast. Or maybe it's your first time here. If so, welcome to the Boy Mom Podcast. And if you're new-ish around here, I would love to invite you and encourage you to scroll all the way back to the very first episode where you'll get a little bit of background about me, about my book, Boy Mom, and how this podcast came to be. I think it'll help you feel like you know me a little bit better. And I hope to get to know you better as well. I love hearing from my listeners, and I love to encourage you in your parenting and in your life. So don't be a stranger. I'm so glad you're here. And I also want to just remind everybody that my home base, where you can find pretty much links to everything, is my website, which is monicaswanson.com. You'll find links, yes, to this podcast. You'll find information about my book. And also, I officially have 10 years of archived blog posts, many of them related to raising boys, to family life. I've got a pretty serious gallery of recipes over there if you're into that. Lots of stuff. So don't be a stranger. Go over to my website, visit, say hi, and just hope you find lots of helpful stuff over there. Now, I am super excited about today's episode. I've been looking forward to this for so long. You heard a short clip at the very beginning from today's guest, which is Dennis Trittin. Now, Dennis is somebody I have so much respect for. I just think he is amazing. One fun fact is that Dennis lives in my hometown of Gig Harbor, Washington. And so that is part of how we initially got connected. Dennis is just the kind of wise voice we all need in our lives. And he's written a number of books. He's a publisher. Today, we're going to be drawing from his book, What I Wish I Knew at 18, Life Lessons for the Road Ahead. But before Dennis started his writing career, he spent most of his life managing over $40 billion of assets for a financial investment firm. And part of his job was researching leaders all over the world, researching what made people successful. And then he hit a point in his life where he decided to switch gears, and he wanted to take everything he had learned and invest it in the next generation. How cool is that, right? So today he speaks and writes and encourages the next generation, young adults and kids. He helps them connect the dots between their character and their future success in the workplace and in life. And I am such a fan of that. If you know me at all, you know that this is what I'm all about. So I just love listening to Dennis. I think he's a great communicator and a lot of fun to talk to. And I think you're going to enjoy today's conversation. Now, the first time I interviewed Dennis, it was for my character training course. Dennis came on to share with me a talk and a download, a printable download that is so good, called 10 Qualities of Workplace and Life Superstars. I loved it so much, and I've heard from so many people who have taken the character training course who said it was a favorite part of the course for them. Their kids loved it. They got so much out of it. It was so practical and inspiring. And I'm so happy that I get to share that in the course, that I thought today would be the perfect time to bring Dennis back on. And he's going to be sharing some pointers from his chapter on character in What I Wish I Knew at 18. And the timing for this is just perfect because if you haven't heard yet, let me be the first to tell you that today the doors have just opened to the character training course. Yes, from now until Friday the 12th, the doors are open. You can sign up to be a part of the character training course. Now, I know if somebody out there is like, I don't even know what she's talking about. What is the character training course? And I get it. There will be a link in the show notes, and you can also hop over right now to monicaswanson.com/character-course, and you can read all about it. There's a short video of me talking about it. You can see some of the expert interviews, read the topics that are in it. The character training course is just so much of my heart because I know how hard it can be to raise kids of character in the world today. This was a challenge that I faced when my boys were little and a challenge I revisited when they became teenagers. And I care so much about you and your kids and your heart for raising kids of character that I wanted to put the best of everything I could find together in a place that had multimedia where you could watch some videos, where you could see some slides. Now, a couple things I want to tell you about this course that are my favorites. One, it's self-paced. Okay, so though the doors are only open until February 12th this week, once you're in it, you have lifetime access. So you can take your time going through it. You can dabble, you can grab what you want now and come back to more later. Anything I add to the course, you will have access to. Okay, so that's really good news. The second thing is that though it's a packed course, it's really put together in bite-sized pieces. The videos and modules are really average, about 10 minutes per lesson. And so they're really doable. They're very practical and doable. I know when I take a course, that's what I love, is something I can do maybe a little bit each evening or on a weekend with my husband. And so I hope that you love that about the course. And again, if this is the first you've heard about it, then I understand it might be all new, but I do hope you'll go over and check out the modules and see what's in it. And listen, if you are listening to this and you've missed the sign up, please don't worry. You can go to that same website, monicaswanson.com/character-course, and leave your name and email, and I will let you know the next time the doors to the course open, okay? So it will open again. Summer is probably when I will next launch the course. And in the meantime, you're going to get a ton out of today's interview because this is good stuff. This isn't stuff that's in the course. It's a separate interview, and I think you're going to love it. But before we dive into today's interview, I just want to thank you again so much for being a part of this community and for your ratings and reviews. If you haven't left one yet, please consider doing that. You just scroll down on your phone, find those 5 stars, tap on them, or you can leave a few words about what you love most about the Boy Mom podcast. I read every review and they mean so much to me. And I thought I would share a very fitting review today. This is from NSA3333. Funny names they always give us. And it's titled Love Your Podcast. She gave me 5 stars. Thank you so much. And it says, Monica, thank you so much for your wisdom and insight on so many things. Your book and podcast are a mentorship to me, and I can't wait for your next character training course to open. Woohoo! I have passed your podcast to all my Boy Mom friends. Thank you so much, NSA3333. Truly, I appreciate that. And guys, this reminds me of the fact that last time the course opened, it was again only open for 1 week. And at the end of the week, I heard from so many people, got messages and emails saying, oh, I just missed it. Can I still get in the course? Please let me in. And here's the deal, guys. I am not allowed to let anyone in after the doors close. It is a hard, fast rule. And so here's your heads up. Don't wait till the last minute. Get over there, check it out now, sign up right away, and don't wait till that last minute. It will close Friday afternoon, okay? Now I am so excited to share this interview with Dennis Trittin with all of you. Dennis and I are going over 5 pointers on how we can raise kids of character in today's world. Some great conversation starters here, some things you might want to jot down. So grab a pen and paper. If you're out on your feet somewhere, you can check show notes later. I'm going to be listing them in show notes as well. But I hope you enjoy this conversation. Well, hey, Dennis, welcome to the Boy Mom podcast.
Monica, it is great to be with you.
I've been so looking forward to this conversation. And I'm going to tell people how I met you after you introduce yourself, but can you start off by telling people a little about your background and who you are and what you do?
You bet. Well, grew up in Wisconsin in a small town called Kimberly, just south of Green Bay, and then ultimately moved out to Washington State to get my MBA, and that's where I met my wife. Ultimately raised 2 kids, Michael, who's now 30, and Lauren is 25. From a career standpoint, I lived the dream at Russell Investments. I was director of research and then lead
Mhm.
portfolio manager during my tenure there, I managed about $40 billion of assets for clients all around the world. And what
Wow.
was so unique about that company and experience was it allowed me to research leaders from all around the world. That was what
Mm,
Russell did. And I
mm,
was one of the lead people in that effort. And when I was 53 years old, I had this great leadership background, and my heart was always been for kids. And the Lord really led me into a whole new encore career of training up the next generation with the leadership principles that I've come to know through my research and my living, and that's led me to become an author and a publisher and a speaker on all things getting kiddos ready to be amazing adults and helping the families get them to that place.
awesome. I love that. We're going to be linking to a number of your books, but today we're going to talk a little bit about a book you wrote called What I Wish I Knew at 18: Life Lessons for the Road Ahead. And it's been, what year did this come out? I don't remember.
It came out in 2011.
Okay. I think it must have been shortly thereafter that my mom heard you speak. You go to the same church as my parents when they're in Gig Harbor. We love our Pastor Mark Toon. We'll do a little shout out. My mom heard you speak there, I believe, and sharing about your book a little bit. And she came to Hawaii and she brought all of my boys a copy of the book. And I just was so impressed because everything you shared in it was just stuff I wanted my boys to know. And, you know, the two older boys were getting into their teenage years then. And so I was so encouraged. And then when I went to work on my character training course, which we're going to be talking about more today, because as this episode comes out, will be the launch week for this for the winter, spring. What are we calling it? What is February? Is that still winter?
Still winter.
Still winter. Sorry, in Hawaii, it's hard to tell. Anyways, and so I was so happy to be able to do an interview with you, Dennis, for the character training course, drawing from all of the research, all of the wisdom that you have. But I'm laughing because as I pulled out the book, I wanted to bring you on today, talk a little bit about your chapter on character. And I'm looking at this book. I'm going to put pictures in the show notes, but this is Jonah's copy I'm looking at. And Jonah has it highlighted and marked up, underlined. And I just love because he got so much out of this. And so Jonah's had you on his Truth for Youth podcast as well. So I'll link to that in show notes. That's super fun. But will you just tell us a little bit about your heart for character? I mean, we know a little about your background now, but give us just a little bit more about why you love to talk about character.
Well, actually, it was interesting when I developed the pointers. I call them life success pointers in What I Wish I Knew at 18. I had to sequence them, and I thought, okay, well, the first chapter has to be on life perspective. I mean, how do we approach the life that we have? But
Mm,
then I went right into character as
mhm,
chapter 2, which tells you how important I think it is. The thing that's so great about character is it's really our internal guiding light. It is the core of who we are. It's the essence of our personal brand. And I like to talk with kids about brands. They're aware of brands of the different companies that of products they're aware of and so forth. But we have our own personal brand, and those are those values and qualities that we impart to others. And so when you think about character, it really influences everything from our value system, our attitudes, our standards of excellence that we hold ourselves to, the priorities that we assign in our life, the choices that we make, and the relationship qualities that we have with others. So it permeates everything. And so if we don't get character right, we are not going to get life right.
wow. I couldn't agree more. And I love that. And I think you communicate it so well. So I'm excited. We're going to just dive in and cover, I think, five if we can get to all five pointers from your book. Will you just kick us off and dive in?
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the first things I think is really important is that oftentimes where character gets off is because we don't have a good definition of what a successful life looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts from that,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a pointer in my book that's called "Don't Define Success by Riches," and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes the way we define success in life will govern how we live our life. So we have to get that right. And
Yeah.
in What I Wish I Knew at 18, in
Mm.
this pointer, I listed a quote from a lady named Bessie Stanley back in 1905 that is absolutely just as true today as it was back then. And I'll read a snippet of it. He has achieved success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of little children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who has left the world better than he found it, whether by an improved copy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given them the best he had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory a benediction. So, for those of you who get what I wish I knew at 18, that might be one of the most important pointers of all, because in her definition, long, long ago, there are so many aspects of character that are embedded, and it would make for great family conversations about
Mm,
what our family's mission is, what
mm,
values do we hold, how do we define success as a family, and how to
wow.
and as individuals. So
Mm,
we love getting it off to a good start, and that is
yeah.
how we define a successful life.
Oh, I love that so much, especially because of all the messages that are out there. If you're on social media, certain channels of social media, you're going to get a different message. And if kids grow up just following whatever the culture tells them, they're going to hear something different about what success is. So I think for parents to be intentional about defining for them what is success, I love that so much. Okay, take us to number two.
Oh, second one is a wonderful one. It's called
Hmm.
preserve your reputation and integrity at all costs.
Oh, so good.
And I share in that there are really few things in life that we would struggle at if we lose. One of the things that we've seen in so many cases is people who kind of give up on integrity, their reputation gets damaged, and it's very difficult to recover from that. So integrity, when I give talks to different business groups and things like that, and ask them what is the number one quality they look for in an employee, inevitably they will say
Mm,
it has to start with integrity.
wow.
That is a non-starter issue. If they don't
Hmm.
perceive that, they will not hire. So
Wow.
when we talk about preserving your reputation, it's guarding that personal brand. And one of the sayings that I just love that really captures it is that you may not always be loved or liked, but you must always be trusted. And
Mm,
when I worked for Russell Investments, we had a corporate culture that was just second to none. And our chairman and chief executive officer, George Russell, used to say that if you're not sure whether or not to do something, imagine that it's in the headline of tomorrow morning's newspaper. And he would come
wow.
up with simple things like this that
Oh,
really were these little filters that I
yeah.
would keep in my head, and other employees too,
I
to
love it.
really measure that. So, how do
Wow.
we impart integrity? With our children, first of all, and especially when our kids are getting ready to leave off on their own, there are some prevention things. So we talk about what are some situations where your integrity may be challenged. And it could be test taking, it could be going to a party, it could be hanging out with kids that you're not sure you share common values with. Well, the easiest way to stay true to your integrity is prevent those situations happening. But also, in some cases, they come at us as a surprise. So, what we'll want to do as families is talk around the dinner table about situations that may
So
come up.
good.
How would you
Mhm.
handle this particular situation? And it wouldn't be very difficult for parents to come up with some really great examples of that. And then the last pointer I would just share on integrity that's super helpful is we like to say to take the integrity challenge, and that is for the next day don't say something about someone else that you would regret if they heard.
Wow.
Oh my
So good.
goodness.
Oh.
That is a game changer. And that includes on social media. It includes, when you're talking with friends, etc. Try it for a day, and your kids will be amazed at how the words will start and then they'll hold back because violates the integrity challenge.
Wow.
And then extend it
Oh.
to a week and to a month and so forth. And a great thing is have the whole family do this. Talk about where
Mm,
we messed up, talk about how it's
mhm.
going. But if we abide by that integrity challenge, we are set in a very good place.
Oh, my goodness. I love that so much. And I think it's fun. You make it a challenge. Boys are going to want to be in on it. So I love
Yes,
that. No,
yes.
that is so good. And if any of us have spent time with someone, sometimes you just come across someone and you're like, I can't remember ever hearing that person say something bad about someone. And that's the person you're going to trust because they wouldn't say something bad about you. And so I am just drawn to people like that and definitely want to be someone like that. So, ooh, that's a good one for our kids. Integrity is huge. And I love that part of your book. There's a bunch more in there too that is so worth reading. Okay,
You
keep
bet.
going. This is so good.
Okay, so the next one is surround yourself with positivity. And it really picks up on what you just shared, Monica, because what we want to do in life is surround ourselves with positive influences. And our influences can be people, it can be the music we listen to, the movies and shows we watch. It can be a lot of things that we take in as individuals that really have an impact on who we are. And of course, with kids, as they get into the teen years and certainly later, peer influences become greater. So surrounding yourself with uplifting people, people that share your values, share your same standards, will hold you accountable when you slip up, just as you will with them. You have that trust relationship with them. There's a saying you may have heard that you become the average of the 5 or so people that you hang out with the most,
Yes,
and so you
yes.
wanna be really, really choosy, and it's a great message, to impart to your kids. And I always talk about my daughter, Lauren, who is, to my knowledge, the greatest friend picker I've ever met. And, what is it that she does? She has her own, like, a BFF filter in her head,
I love
where
it.
if she feels like she has to change who she is in order to
Mhm,
fit in with someone or a group,
mhm. Yeah.
she'll just take a pass. And,
Wow.
and she wants to be the authentic her and
Mm,
not have to feel like she has to change that in order to fit in. And so I always share the importance of that, having kids think about what are the most important qualities they look for in a friend, and then have that in your mind as you're going off in these new places like Jonah is at Westmont, right?
mhm. Yep,
Okay, he's got
yep.
all kinds of strangers. Who's meant to
Mhm.
be Jonah's new best friends? Well,
Yeah.
Jonah's going to be choosy because he's been trained that way. But,
'Cause he read your book.
well, he's been parented very well too.
Oh, thank you.
But it's just great common sense for people.
Oh, I love that. And one thing, because I have a whole chapter in Boy Mom also on influence and the importance of influences in our kids' lives. And one thing I wanted to be clear on is that my message wasn't that kids shouldn't have friends who aren't, highest standard in every way because, they're going to be in school with, on sports teams, have neighbors. And so I wanted to be clear they can be kind and friendly to everyone, but those people that they bring into their core group of friends that they really hang out with and spend time with and open up to, those are the ones you really want to be picky, and it's worth it for your future. So I couldn't love that anymore. Thank you for that one.
You
Okay, you
bet.
got a couple more?
You bet. Next one, I love, and it's called "Give Everything Your Best." And oh, what a message this is for kiddos because when you ask them to clean up their room, sometimes you'll have someone that makes it sparkly clean, and others, they throw things in a corner and think and
Mhm.
call that good.
Yep.
um, so there's a quote from Helen Keller that I include in what I wish I knew at 18 on this point that I love, and she says, I long to accomplish great and noble tasks, but my chief duty is to accomplish small tasks as if they were great and noble. And, I think about that and I think about boot camp in the military and how, they have to get people to have such incredible standards, the way they make their beds, the way
Yep.
they do anything. But, we if we have high standards of excellence, that's going to permeate all we do. And it should. And I think that's really what Helen's message is. And what I shared though in this pointer is the importance of modeling this when you're in a team situation,
Mm,
because it's one thing if we're doing something by ourselves that will only affect ourselves. It's another thing if we're a part of a team, and that could be a sports team, it could be a project team at school, could be a business team at work, whatever that is. You have to set that bar even higher
mm.
when you're in a team environment, because your teammates are depending upon you. And so giving everything your best is important, whether it's individually, but especially more so even when you're in a team situation.
Oh, that is so good. And I think, families are ultimately your own little team. And I think for us, we try to point this out when kids are just doing their chores. The rest of us are depending on you. If you're the dish guy this week and we have someone over, we're going to count on you to do your best and not just what you have to do. Don't just get it done, but do it well. And I think my boys have kind of put that positive peer pressure on one another when it comes to the family team and just being excellent about things. So that is so good. I love
Oh,
it.
love
Okay.
it. So the last point I wanted to touch on before we get into key character traits and how do we decide which things to focus on and all of that,
Mm,
is called solicit and embrace constructive feedback.
I
And the
love it.
interesting thing about character is that it affects not only our values, but also our productivity. And I don't think people totally always realize that. And so one of the things that I know was for me the key to my success in my work at Russell, and that was always striving to get feedback from other people. What did I do well that I should keep doing that way? Where are some areas where I can up my game? And that's the
Yep.
way I wouldn't say, where am I weak? I would say, where can I up my game? It's it's
Oh,
it's a more
so good.
comfortable way of looking at it, because we are all people designed to grow.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that in many cases is our best source of growth is getting constructive feedback on some things that we may be doing, or attitudes, the way we communicate, whatever it is, where we need to sharpen our game. And that feedback is invaluable. Most young people, though, they love all the compliments in the world,
Mhm. Mhm.
but if we give them constructive feedback, oftentimes they really, I don't want to say wither from that, but it,
Uh-huh.
it
You
becomes
can
a
say
big
it.
deal, and
Yes.
it shouldn't. So seek it
Mm.
out, and then it
Mm.
takes the sting out of getting corrected. Because if you actually ask for the feedback, you're giving that other person that permission. And you do this throughout life, and it is the shortest cut to success that I can think of.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
I love that so much because if other people aren't doing it and you're asking, that's going to make you stand out right away to a boss or a teacher or whatever. Oh, so good. Ask for it.
Oh,
I love that.
Absolutely. And I know in my career, I was an investment person, but I also wanted to help in the sales area, because so many of my best friends there were in sales, and I knew if I could help them, we would help the company. But I would help my best buds with getting a
Right.
neat commission check, right? So
Yes.
it was wonderful. And through those years, I did all these presentations, and they gave me all of this feedback, and that really affected the value the company placed in me.
Mm.
And it was only through that, implementing this pointer, that I was able to get to that place.
Okay,
And
but let's just agree it's got to be hard at the beginning. That first time
oh,
asking, like how
oh,
uncomfortable that is.
it is. But if you look at it from the standpoint of, there are two ways that I can improve. One is I can continue to grow my strengths,
Mhm.
or I can reduce the impact of my weaknesses. In
Mhm. Mhm.
either way, they are going to allow me to grow. And
Mm.
so you almost look at it, you kind of take your ego out of it, and you just look at it from the standpoint of, kind of dispassionately, what does it take for someone to grow? Well, growing my strengths, addressing my weaknesses. Okay, so let's talk about that with all the key influencers in my life, coaches and things like that. And if I seek it out, like I said, it takes the sting out of, the coach, bringing me into the room and,
Uh-huh.
telling me all the
Oh,
things that I need to work on. I'm seeking that out, and a coach would love you for demonstrating that
absolutely.
attitude.
Oh
no
my
doubt.
goodness, yes. And this is really about humility. And I'm thinking, just as you're talking, I'm just imagining how amazing if families could practice this together and say, hey, son, every day, once a week, have a team meeting, whatever it might be. And I'm going to challenge you to say, hey, mom, dad, where can I improve? Like, just practice it with mom and dad. And mom and dad can do the same. I mean, I'm homeschooling my kids, and I can say to my little fifth grader, Levi, how can I better help you with your math? Like, why not just model that as parents
Mm.
and then train our kids to practice it in the family setting? They're going to get more comfortable. It's like a muscle, like anything. And then they will be more likely to get comfortable doing it in friendships and in, sports and in jobs. Oh, that is so
Oh,
solid.
absolutely.
Okay, so next we are going to go into talking about some of the key character traits that you talk about. Would you just dive in, tell us a little bit about your top character traits and a little bit about how you came up with those?
Yeah. So that's a great time to take a deep dive in this, because I think one of the things about character that makes it a little bit challenging is it is so broad in terms. And so one day I sat down and I wrote down my laundry list of all the character qualities and traits that I could think of, and then I grouped them into different buckets.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped me in kind of organize my thinking about just how broadly diverse character is, and kind of giving me a roadmap of how to do it. And part of your character training course, there is a link, I believe, in there
Mm-hmm.
to a document I prepared, a resource called Positive Traits and Values.
Yes.
And in that document, I actually came up with 5 different categories of character.
Mm.
And it's really important that we touch on each of these categories as we go about growing the character in our family. And so some qualities are what I call heart related: their
Mm-hmm.
kindness, their sincerity, their compassion, their friendliness. They come from the heart. Others are integrity related. So things like honesty, trustworthiness, respect, honor, tact, things like that are all a part of integrity. Another category is productivity related. How reliable are we? How high are our standards? How productive are we? How disciplined are we? How resourceful are we? These are all character traits, but again, we don't always think of them as the same as maybe kindness, and they are, they're different. Another category is spiritually related, and that can include things like gratefulness, faith, contentment, humility, modesty, dignity, things like that. Just super important. And then the final category, I call it personal nature related. I couldn't come up with a better label. Cheerful, positive, self confidence, good humored, sociable, expressive, politeness, cooperativeness. And you see, when you look at character as a kind of a large category, it really is very different when you go
Mm-hmm.
across the different
It is.
categories. So we put together that resource to give families a roadmap,
Mm-hmm.
and to also, as a family, kind of talk about the different types of character qualities, which ones we might want to focus on this week. We can have a character quality of the week where all of us kind of focus on, let's say it's respect. Okay, so this is our week of respect. Everyone, let's focus on that. Let's talk at the dinner table about examples that we lived out today that
Mm-hmm.
demonstrated respect.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of a year, you can really cover a lot of these territories. Situational ethics is also great. So you can take a quality like respect and then come up with, here is a situation. Now, how does that look when it comes to respect, and how might we have handled it in a more respectful way? So I came up with my top
Yes.
8
I love that.
character traits, my top 8 that I just think are the most important. And they are kindness, compassion, gratitude, integrity, grit, intrinsic motivation, other centeredness, and a commitment to excellence. And those are my 8, but you know what, Monica? I bet you would come up with a different set
Yeah,
of 8.
yeah,
Probably
yeah.
some overlaps,
Uh-huh.
but that's what's so fun about using a resource like this and to
Mhm.
then proactively model it within our families.
I love that, and I will list those, your aid in the show notes, and people who took the course have said that that download was really helpful to them, especially as they introduced their kids to just what character is all about and why they're working on this and what they're going for. It just helped, I think, the kids wrap their brains around what mom and dad were talking about in this thing of character. So I love how you've categorized them, and I think that's super helpful, and I think it's kind of fun for people to decide as a family, even. You've mentioned brand and even the family brand. What are our family's key character qualities? What are we seeking out? And, find some things and like you said, focus on one a week or one a month. And how just what a fun way to approach it. Super good
Mm.
stuff.
Absolutely. And just a final thought on different parenting strategies that that we can all use. I mentioned situational opportunities to kind of discuss that character trait of the week. Initiate opportunities where your character is being demonstrated, and put
Mm,
your children in situations where their character
hmm
can be expressed. And it's just in the end, remember the kids will do what you praise. And I think as parents, we get so commonly caught up in praising the outcome, praising the grade, praising the tangible and result, as opposed to praising the character qualities that led to it. And so,
hmm
they'll do what we praise them for. So
Yes,
we all have to become more praise focused when it comes to character building.
totally.
Yep.
No, I love that. And I love it because, like you said, most of us do a lot of praising, but to pull back and go, what is it we're praising? Are we praising the grade, or are we praising all the effort it took to get there?
Yes.
Are we praising the win for the team, or the fact that you really had to struggle to get to that win? Or even if you lost, let's look at the what went into that game or the practice and focus on that. I think that's huge. I love it. And again, it just takes us as parents being tuned in and really intentional about the things we're noticing. And then I love you talked about situational, but this just makes me think too about the idea of, again, sharing from our own lives around the dinner table. Share a story from your day where you were challenged, where your character was challenged, and how you handled it. Even if you blew it, you can tell that story as something that you want to grow in, how you want to do better next time. And I think that the more we share examples from our own life, our kids are learning, and they may not even show you at the time, but they're taking notes. So, oh, that is all so good. Well, Dennis, there's a whole bunch more, of course, in the character training course with you. And I've appreciated so much what you shared. It was definitely a favorite of people who've taken the course so far. So I'm sure if people listening are able to dive in and take the character training course, they're going to enjoy what you share in there. And then also, of course, this book, What I Wish I Knew at 18. Tell us real quick the titles of your other books, and then we'll link to them in show notes.
You bet. So our first parenting book, this is a book messaged directly to parents, where What I
Mhm.
Wish I Knew at 18 is actually conversationally written to the teenager and young adult. So it's a third party voice for parents. Parenting for the Launch: Raising Teens to Succeed in the Real World was our second book, and it was about 5 years ago that we came out with that. Co-authored myself and my editor, who is a mom of 5 kiddos. So we have the perspectives of mom and dad in that book, but it's all about getting your families prepared for launch time. And then our latest book, which came out about a year ago, is called Wings Not Strings: Strategies to Let Go with Confidence. And the thing with Wings Not Strings is it's a smaller book, a deeper dive in the whole letting go process, which is a big struggle for all of us when
Mm,
we're in that
yes.
upper teen age of getting ready. and
Oh,
and because the question is, are we releasing an eagle to soar, giving our kids wings, or are we releasing a kite that we can continue to control and maneuver, which would be the
oh,
strings? And that
ouch.
really kind of that whole theme just permeated our
Oh,
parenting book. So encourage
oh.
your audience to check out those as well.
Oh, for sure. Oh my goodness, that's so important, and it's one of those things most moms I talk to when the kids are young are just dreading that day they have to face it. So the better prepared we are, the easier it'll be when that day comes. And it can be a beautiful process, though. Never easy, but it can be beautiful. So, oh, well, Dennis, thank you again so much. We are going to send everybody to where they can find you and your website. And so just appreciate so much your time being with us today.
You bet. Well, thanks so much, Monica, for having me, and congratulations on those kids that you're raising.
Thanks so much. Hey, friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. And of course, you can find links to Dennis's books, anything we talked about over in the show notes. And if you weren't able to jot some notes down, I will have a few notes listed there as well from our conversation. And you can find show notes at monicaswanson.com/episode-93. All right. And once again, I wholeheartedly welcome you to come on over and check out the character training course, see if it's a good fit for the season you are in. And that can be found at monicaswanson.com/character-course. I hope to see you in that course real soon. Please send me a message, an email, something to let me know if you're in the course, and I can't wait to welcome you personally. Okay, friends, thank you for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, aloha.